H minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction to supplement the growing power of our armed forces. In their present form, these bombs are now in production, and even more powerful forms are in development. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws his power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East. We are now prepared to destroy more rapidly and completely every productive enterprise the Japanese have in any city. We shall destroy their docks, their factories, and their communications. Let there be no mistake. We shall completely destroy Japan's power to make war. It was to spare the Japanese people from utter destruction that the ultimatum of July the 26th was issued at Potsdam. Their leaders promptly rejected that ultimatum. If they do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth. Behind this air attack will follow sea and land forces in such numbers and power as they have not yet seen, and with the fighting skill of which they are already well aware. We have spent more than $2 billion.
Duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover. Paul and Patty know this. No matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb explodes right then. It's a bomb. Duck and cover. Sundays, holidays, vacation time, we must be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. That's the first thing to do. Duck and cover. First, you duck. Then, you cover. You duck and cover tight. Duck and cover under the table. It's a bomb. Duck and cover.
He did what we all must learn to do. You and you and you and you. Duck and cover.
A warning may come quite unexpectedly. We will now tell you what to do if a warning sounds when you are at home. And then we will explain what to do if you are out of doors. First, if you are at home. If attack is imminent, you will hear the attack sound like this. Send your young children to the fallout room, then go quickly and turn off the gas and the electricity at the mains. Close down stoves.
This is the Wartime Broadcasting Service. This country has been attacked with nuclear weapons. Communications have been severely disrupted, and the number of casualties and the extent of the damage are not yet known. We shall bring you further information as soon as possible. Meanwhile, stay tuned to this wavelength, stay calm, and stay in your own house. Remember, there's nothing to be gained by trying to get away. By leaving your homes, you could be exposing yourselves to greater danger. If you leave, you may find yourselves without food, without water, without accommodation, and without protection. We shall be on the air every hour on the hour. Stay tuned to this wavelength, but switch your radios off now to save your batteries. That is the end of this broadcast.
We imagine a future, and our imaginings horrify us. They won't fear it until they understand it. And they won't understand it until they've used it. Theory will take you only so far. I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon. But we have no choice. Is anyone ever going to tell the truth about what's happening here?
In the desert sun, cotton cactus come undone. Blessed rainfall on that time, wasting waves. Giant cactus, desert sun, caught in blessed rain. Waves of love fall from my tongue and fade away. Fever dreams of desert rain, sweeping sand on night's highway. Wake up to the sound of shame. Fever dream, I feel no way.
Take a look at this rare video of Hiroshima from 1945. The U.S. military shot this footage right after the atomic blast that ultimately killed about 140,000 people. President Obama will make an historic visit to the city tomorrow. He'll be the first sitting U.S. president to ever travel to Hiroshima since World War II. He's expected to highlight the catastrophic dangers of nuclear warfare. Obama is in Japan for the G7 summit.
Imagine if we detonated a nuclear bomb in space. Actually, you don't have to. You can see it for yourself. That was Starfish Prime, the highest altitude nuclear test in history. In 1962, the US government launched a 1.4 megaton bomb from Johnston Island and detonated it 400 kilometers above the Pacific, about as high as where the International Space Station orbits today. The detonation generated a giant fireball and created a burst of energy called an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, that expanded for over 1,000 kilometers. EMPs can cause a power surge, damaging electronic equipment in the process, and this one was no different. Across Hawaii, streetlights went dark, telephones went down, and navigation and radar systems went out. Not to mention the 6 or so satellites that failed. And all this came from a 1.4 megaton bomb. Tsar Bomba, which was the largest nuclear bomb that was ever detonated, was 50 megatons. So what would happen if we detonated that above the United States? For starters, there's no atmosphere in space, so there.
An extraordinary book is about to come to life as an unforgettable motion picture. It's the story of Jim and Hilda.
Hello, dear.
Hello, love. Did you have a nice morning, dear?
Oh, all right, thanks. Rather uneventful.
Two kind, simple people living on trust and
It'll
hope.
take more than a few bombs to get me down.
The Prime Minister, speaking a few minutes ago in the House of Commons, has warned that the international situation is deteriorating rapidly.
Crumbs.
Could break out.
What's the matter, dear? Have you burned yourself?
This is it, Dux.
Civil defense
This is really it.
But now they're caught up in events which will change our world forever.
Just you be careful, Jane.
An enemy missile attack has been launched.
Oh, dear. I've left the oven on.
Get in, get in, get in!
The cake will be served.
So long, child. It's all over. I never found the sign. I dread to think of when the wind blows. When the wind blows.
When the Wind Blows, a film for all time. When the Wind Blows.
Oh, I'd love to live out in the country, wouldn't you, Jimmy?
What the heck?
Why not?
It's dead.
The unprovoked attack on our submarine and the move into Iran are the actions of a reckless and warlike power. I have to warn the Soviets in the clearest possible terms that they risk taking us to the brink of an armed confrontation with incalculable consequences for all mankind.
I know, but don't it scare you what it might lead to? It bloody scares me. There's no we can do about it, is there? Tell you one thing, if the bomb does drop, I want to be pissed out of my mind and straight underneath it when it happens.
There's growing evidence overnight from scientists and observers in many countries that there have been 2 nuclear explosions in the Middle East.
The most widespread danger is fallout. Fallout is dust that is sucked up from the ground by the explosion. Fallout can kill.
Take orders! £1.50 a goal! Come on, all of you! £1.50 could save your life!
When you hear the attack warning, you and your family must take cover at once. Do not stay out of doors. If you are caught in the open, lie down.
It's 8:30 a.m., 3:30 in the morning in Washington. Over the past 4 days, neither the president nor his senior staff will have had more than a few hours' rest. This is when they may be asleep. This is when Western response will be slowest.
As we expected, nearly all the supermarket shelves are empty, but we've managed to get the warehouses controlled by the police. As yet, we haven't located all the root vegetable clumps on local farms, but stocks of sugar, wheat, flour and rice are quite good. Attack warning? Is it for real? Attack warning? It's for bloody real. Is it?
Everybody is in front of you, laughing at you, demeaning you, breaking down every single part of you.
But first, that explosion at a nuclear plant in the Soviet Union. What caused it and how many people did it hurt? Scanty information has come so far from the Soviets, but here's Peter Snow to help fill out the gaps.
It does now seem likely that sometime in the last couple of days there's been perhaps the worst accident in the short history of the world's nuclear power industry. The Russians may have been hoping they could contain it without having to release the news, as they appear to have tried to do so in an earlier accident in the Urals 19 years ago. But the fact that they've had to reveal it and admit that there are casualties suggests they're deeply worried about the scale of it. The first scientific judgments outside Russia is that there's no danger to life in Scandinavia, where the contamination was first picked up, and in Britain, the National Radiological Protection Board say the levels are so low that if it ever reached Britain, it should not cause any harm. Well, it was just 4 hours ago when Soviet viewers were watching their evening news bulletin, and the announcer revealed that the accident had taken place.
Don't look up. The European Space Agency says the space rock has a 1 in 83 chance of hitting us in just over 7 years' time. Astronomer David Whitehouse joining us now. Hi, David. How worried should we be?
I think this has the potential to be very serious indeed. The current odds on this rock striking us in 2032 are down to 1 in 67, which is unacceptable to ignore. We only have another couple of months to observe this rock before it goes out of sight. Now, what will probably happen is that the orbit will be refined and it'll go down to a very, very low probability. It won't hit us at all. But should it remain somewhere around about 1 in 67 or even 1 in 100, then we face a problem because we will not see this rock again until 2028. And that's the time we will have to take measures to deflect it. So we've got some very serious decisions to make. We cannot ignore this rock. It's the highest probability of an impact I can recall. And it has the potential, the possibility for being an emergency for planet Earth.
Oh, we need to take it seriously, David, from what you're saying. What might be able to do in 2028 if it hasn't changed its trajectory?
Well, should it not go away as a risk, which it's probably going to do, but as I said, we cannot ignore that, we may have to consider emergency deflection measures. Now, this will involve perhaps reaching the asteroid in 2028 and trying to nudge it slightly out of its orbit so that 4 years later it misses us. And you could do that either with an impact, and NASA has impacted other asteroids to see the effect on their orbit and their trajectory, and that has worked to a limited extent. But it might not work for this object. It may well be. We might even have to consider the severe measures of sending up a nuclear weapon.
So here are some images of cities that have been destroyed, but each city has a different story. Can you tell which is which? One of these photos is from the recent fires in the Pacific Palisades. The other two photos are from Japan in 1945, one of them alleged to be caused by a nuclear bomb, and the other a fire bombing of conventional weapons. Which is which? How can you tell? What is going on here? Could they all be caused by the same thing? And the real question I have is not if, but when this happens again, could they just blame it on anything they want? For example, a nuclear bomb narrative or an alien invasion narrative. We're looking at 3 different photos with 3 different narratives, but all the photos basically look the same. Are they just going to start destroying entire cities? Not just parts of cities, but entire cities razed to the ground? Well, it wouldn't be the first time they've done this. According to CNN World, a name you can trust, history's deadliest air raid happened in Tokyo during World War II, and you've probably never heard of it. Well, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. I've heard of it. I actually know people that were in this. They experienced it. Older people that were very young at the time. Tokyo, March 10th, 1945. Now, apparently this one killed 100,000 people and injured 1 million people. Why didn't Japan surrender after this? Destroying the entire city of Tokyo, but they still didn't surrender. This is Hiroshima. It looks very similar to what happened in Tokyo just a few months later, and they did similar things in places like Dresden. And this is the Pacific Palisades, January 2025. Looks very similar, actually. And this is from Maui a couple of years ago. All I'm saying is they look very similar. A firebombing air raid and a nuclear bomb and a forest fire and another forest fire with lots of wind. So we're basically observing the same phenomenon, but they're attaching different narratives to the phenomenon. But the result is the same in every...
Spook.
Good evening, everybody.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Where's Mr. Hammer?
John's having major computer issues.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. He can't log on at all. It keeps kicking him out. So we might have got you all here for no reason whatsoever. Or certainly because John's not here anyway.
Can you read that writing behind me, Fire? In that neon light.
Bright.
No, but can you read it? Is it the right way around or is it backwards?
Yeah, this must be the placebo.
The place. No, just because I didn't know if it mirrored and flipped or not.
Can everyone hear us all right? Yeah, I don't know whether John's going to get on tonight because the.
So what we're going to do? We're going to have to wing an hour, Fire.
We're going to have to wing it. We're going to have to chinwag for an hour if he can't get on. Yeah.
Let me just show.
It really pissed off. I heard his Yorkshire accent.
Cussing and swearing.
Cussing and swearing. Yeah. I don't know if I saw Dave in.
Yeah, it was. Dave Murphy was in there. Yeah,
I've emailed him, see if he wants to come in.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
We didn't bump you, Dave. We got it. I got it mixed up, mate. Too much going on, lad. Definitely didn't bump you. I've just sent you an invite anyway, so you can come in second best. But yeah.
Have we done a live one before? We did, didn't we?
No, we didn't do a live one. We did it with Matt Lamman, didn't we? We've only really done them. Did one with Phil from Amish.
Mm.
I don't know where Phil is, but
yeah, your mic sounds a bit tinny. Mine doesn't. Mine sounds perfect.
Well, yours sounds perfect. How do you know?
I don't know. Does it?
Mine's set all right.
Yeah. Sounds all right, just a bit echoey.
Yeah, it's set all right. Is that? So people keep calling me Don, and this guy says Chris sounds better than Don for once. You sound like you're in the bathroom, Don.
Yeah, that's
not called Don.
It does sound a bit bathroomy.
I'm not called Don.
Sounds a bit bathroomy, Don.
It's better than Dominique.
Dom call it twat.
Yeah. I'll try and bring John in. We're going to do. Can you hear us, John?
All right, John.
You can't hear us, can you?
No. Does that sound any better, Chris? Yeah, it's better. What was it?
I don't know. I take it you can't hear us, John. Nothing there. It says live YouTube for you.
You obviously can't hear me.
We can hear you now, John.
We can hear you now. Just need a bit of volume, John. Just a little bit of volume. It's going to be shocking, isn't it?
Hello.
Hello.
Hopeless.
We can hear you, John. I don't think you can hear us.
Yeah. I tell you what, John. Let's knock it off for tonight, and we'll rearrange it, and we'll give it a practice run next time. Eh?
Yeah.
Can we do that, John?
Looking forward to this live, says Kaza. Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
but
me
don't
too.
know if it's going to work.
We've been.
I don't know if what do we do?
Well, I think we're going to have to just have a chinwag for half an hour. John, you probably might as well just we'll rearrange it. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
I'll get rid of him. I'll get rid of you, John.
Can you see me?
Cancelled.
Yeah. It's no good that. He's just sat there. He can't hear anything.
Did you email him?
Mm. Yeah. He's disappeared. So what have you been up to then, Christian?
Nothing. I've been at... Oh, I can tell you this. I had a quick look, just to remind myself. I know we've talked about it before. How many nuclear bombs do you think have been set off around the globe, stroke, plane, stroke, whatever it is, since nuclear bombs were discovered, stroke, invented? How many do you reckon?
I don't know.
Off the top of your head.
I haven't a clue.
Well, bearing in mind, according to the system of nuclear bombs, if one set off, it eradicates an entire area for 1,000 years, even though people are still living in Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and Chernobyl. They set off 2,056, approximately, over since the 40s, obviously.
Yeah.
1,030 US, 715 Soviet, 210 France, weirdly. UK and China 45. I don't know if that means 45 each. I think it does. North Korea 6, India 3, Pakistan 2.
Right.
But then America go around telling everyone that they can't have nuclear bombs.
It sounded like you were reading cricket scores out then.
Well, I kind of was.
Yeah.
Reading nuclear bombs. But why?
Getting some good advice from Jimmy Woo saying reboot system. We've already done that, Jim. You're about 2 weeks behind.
You don't have to be rude.
I do.
He's only trying to give advice.
I know. Pointless advice.
Sorry about that, Jim. My brother's a knob.
Jim's one of my mates, you know that.
Yeah, I know. So
he
knows you're a knob.
I tell you what I did do, you know. I looked into some of the leading players in like the nuclear nonsense in World War II, right? And what struck me was that Franklin D. Roosevelt had a royal bloodline back to King James II, King of Scotland, Edward III, Irish King Brian Boru. He also was initiated into the Holland Lodge No. 8, New York City, on October the 11th, 1911.
Right.
He was made a prophet at sight in the Tripo Bed Grotto on October the 30th, 1931 as well, and made an honorary Grand Master of the Order of Demole on April 13th, 1934. Harry S. Truman also has a royal bloodline back to Robert III, King of Scots, and he was initiated on February the 9th, 1909. A lot of 9/11s of these people initiated, Chris. In the Belton Lodge, number 450 in Missouri. He was the first master of the Grand View Lodge 618 in Missouri as well in 1911. Elected Grand Master of Missouri, September 25th, my birthday, 1914, and served until October the 1st, 1941. He was the 33rd president and received the 33rd degree of Scottish Rights on October 19th, 1945. Yeah. Winston Churchill was initiated into Freemasonry on the 24th of May 1901 at the Studholme Lodge 1591. 2 months later, 19th of July, Churchill graduated to the second degree. On the 9th of March 1902, he became a Master Mason. All 3 ceremonies were conducted at the Studholme Lodge. He comes from a legacy of great Masons. He was actively involved in Masonic petitions. Blah, blah, blah.
Great Masons. What makes a great Mason?
I don't know. Hammer and chisel?
That's an interesting... Darren in Murfield just put a comment in there. Chris, in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker film, after he kills the blokes on the subway...
I think it's called Joaquin Phoenix.
Doesn't matter, does it? He picks up a newspaper with a headline about disaster in Ukraine.
Right.
I never noticed that, Darren.
Right.
That Joaquin Phoenix said that. Joaquin Phoenix. I'll have to rewatch it. I saw it once at the cinema, actually. Couldn't be bothered to watch the second one.
Right. A few generals were also, and these were only ones that I just picked out. I didn't do any heavy sort of diving research type stuff into it. General Henry Harley Hap Arnold. I wonder if he were related to Aldous Huxley. He was a Mason. George Patton, who's got a royal bloodline as well, back to Edward III. He was a Mason. General George Marshall, he was a Mason. Douglas MacArthur, he was had a royal bloodline as well, King Edward III, and he was a Mason. 32nd degree Mason, or Scottish Rite Freemason.
Slight pattern for me.
Yeah. Dwight Eisenhower, he was honorary knighted twice by the king, I suppose it was back then. He wasn't a Mason though. A lot of people thought he was, but he wasn't. Werner von Braun, another one who basically supposedly invented the
rocket as we know it,
intercontinental ballistic Musk missile.
And he was an Nazi.
And apparently,
I told you I went to the Science Museum with a nipper a while ago, and it's there. There's a whole space exhibition, and he's there in full Nazi regalia, like talking to other Nazis. Then it goes on to tell you that he invented the V2 rocket. I think
he was one of the good Nazis.
Right, okay.
Probably one of the only ones.
Yeah, one of the good science Nazis.
Yeah. Blooming heck, we've got Dave Murphy in the house.
Hi, Dave.
Oh, hang on. I was still watching the video.
All right. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm great. Yeah. Serves you right for bumping me.
Yeah, standing you up. Yeah.
What do you mean you bumped him? What did you do?
I double booked him.
All right.
With John.
How offensive.
Yeah.
How rude.
Do you know what happened? His email got deleted. Right. And I thought, I haven't heard back from Dave.
No, you told me that actually. You said you hadn't heard back from him.
Yeah. So I didn't actually bump you.
Dog ate my homework. That's what it sounds like.
It went into spam, blah, blah, blah.
No, he actually told me that, Dave. He said I'm not sticking up. I would never stick up for him.
He'd never stick up for me anyway, yeah.
I'd happily throw him right under a bus.
Yeah. I thought we'd get you on for an hour just to see what you've been up to.
Okay.
Standing for John.
I thought you wanted me to talk about the nuclear scare scam.
And that as well, yeah.
Yeah, go on,
as well,
talk about that. Yeah.
I don't know if you just heard there. I did a bit of digging on the prime ministers and presidents and generals that were floating about around this time. And Franklin Roosevelt has a royal bloodline, and he was a master mason, initiated on October the 11th, 1911. Harry S. Truman initiated February 9th, 1909. What 9/11s? He also had a royal bloodline. Obviously, we know Winston Churchill had a royal bloodline, but he was also initiated in 1901 at the Studley Home Lodge as well. And and Harry S. Truman was the 33rd president, and he was there was another 33 somewhere floating. Oh, he received a 33rd degree Scottish Rite.
When are we going to get the fact that we've been living in a completely and utterly stage managed reality? All of them. It's not just a few of them. All of them. They're all part of the same family, all part of the same secret societies. It's all one big gang. Yeah. When are we going to get that?
It's definitely starting to seem that way, though.
Yeah. One big wank.
What's your opinion on the nuclear situation, Dev?
Well, I came across Galen Windsor's video years and years ago. It must be about 9 or 10 years ago, and that opened my eyes. That realizing that, I don't know if anyone knows of this video. He was a nuclear engineer in the beginning of the nuclear age, and he was designing nuclear power plants. And he used to go around the country showing people or telling people that they used to swim in those containment pools, and they would walk around with bars of plutonium in their pockets, as long as they didn't bring them together to cause a critical mass. Right, they were completely safe. Right, on stage he would eat uranium just to show that it wasn't.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
Yeah, I've seen that guy. Yeah, I've seen that guy. Yeah,
and he said that they were working away, just messing around with these things. No worries. Nobody was getting poisoned or anything.
Turning into Toxic Avenger.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the government came along and said, you're going to have to wear these dosimeter things to show that how much of a dosage you've got. Everybody was like, what? That's ridiculous. But, people who complained were fired. So everybody started wearing these dosimeters. And then very slowly, as we've seen it with everything, by degrees, they just shifted the narrative from, this nuclear power being healthy and life-giving to dangerous and poisonous. So I watched that film. It changed my outlook, and I started looking into this idea. Now, it didn't stick with me until I think it was something like 2013, maybe 2012. I used to have a radio station, Awake Radio, and one of our hosts was a guy called Shaziz, who lived in the States, and he was away for a while, and he came back, and he was like, "Yeah, I've just come back from holiday in Hiroshima," and we were like, looking at each other, going, "What? You went and had a holiday in a nuclear wasteland?"
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's a beautiful city, and there's no radiation there, and everyone's happy and healthy. But we were told, it would be a nuclear wasteland for 10,000 years.
Yeah,
that was the story we were told.
Yeah. Well, Japan's had 2 nuclear bombs, apparently, if you believe the narratives, and a nuclear reactor fail.
And it ain't that big, is it?
And it ain't that big. It's just a little island, and it's all right. It seems to be all right.
Yes. So no, there was no actual nuclear explosion there. It turns out that Japan or Hiroshima and Nagasaki were firebombed relentlessly, and essentially, at the time, Japan was like made of paper, rice paper and wood. Yeah. So the devastation that we saw was literally firebombing.
And it looks very similar, Dave, to Dresden and the recent fires in America. When you look at the landscapes, it's very, very similar, doesn't it? Yeah. And
it could be that they've had this directed energy technology for a lot longer than we realize. Because we first got to look at it, I guess, with 9/11, because we're seeing the same sort of hallmarks, like cars melted and the wheels melting, wheels and glass melting, yet there's paper inside the car that's not been touched.
And passports. And passports.
And bandanas.
but you see, we're seeing the same hallmarks in every one of those forest fires where none of the forest actually burned. We're seeing,
Dave, there's a simple explanation for that. The trees hold moisture, apparently, and they don't burn as quick.
Oh, okay. So that's how forest fires work, is it? Trees don't burn. Okay, gotcha. Thanks for that.
So I think it was Brian Cox that mentioned that one.
Oh, it would be, wouldn't it?
He had a graph. Yeah.
Would you be surprised if, with all the shenanigans going on now, if there was a false flag mini nuke or something, and somewhere became eradicated that you weren't allowed to go? Would at this point in
what was it in
Planet of the Apes?
No, the Planet of the Apes, and we're at District 13 in what's it called? The
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, yeah. Right. District 13 had a supposed nuclear meltdown there.
Well, they could simulate a nuclear explosion, couldn't they? A large enough conventional explosion, because we've got trained to see a mushroom cloud as being a nuclear explosion, right? But a large enough explosion will produce a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if you saw that. I think it was an explosion in Beirut or.
The big. They said it.
Yeah,
that
was a mushroom. Yeah,
at the harbour.
Yes. Yeah. There was that one, and there was also one at it was like near a petrol station and I can't remember where it was, but it was like 3 explosions, one after the other, and each one got bigger and bigger. I wish I could remember where that was, but. You would swear, because of the mushroom cloud afterwards, would swear that was a nuclear explosion. So they could simulate one.
The ones you see online, they're just massive explosions done in slow motion to make them look more grandiose.
Oh no! But the one I saw, the videos, it was a couple in a flat, maybe a mile away from it, and it looked like a petrol station was on fire. and then there was an explosion, and yeah, I was big enough. And then the screen lit up for a second, and there was a loud noise. And they said, the guy was like, "Yeah, wow, that was bad. That was bad." And I think a woman goes, "Are we dangerous here?" He goes, "Yeah, we're dangerous." And then all of a sudden, the screen lights up, and the biggest explosion. And they were like, "Let's go, let's go." It was huge. But as I said, you know, we associate a mushroom cloud with a nuclear explosion, but any sufficiently large explosion will produce a mushroom cloud.
It's even got a brand name now, hasn't it? A mushroom cloud. It's got it's like a brand name.
Yeah. So
I mean, imagine we've been brainwashed with this crap. You know, this fear of nuclear bombs since the
all
40s.
our life, really.
Yeah. And I mean, I've told the story, Dave. I remember in the 80s, my dad talking to his mate saying they're going to drop one, and we're screwed when they do it. And I just had nightmares. I mean, I was crapping myself at 10 years old. That,
we all
you know,
were.
they're just going to drop one. Yeah.
I was saying in the chat there that when the wind blows, when that came out, it terrified everybody who watched it. I mean,
and how strange they got the same. It was the same artist that did the snowman, so you got everyone on side with walking
Ali
in the
Jones.
air. Yeah. And then they do one with those two old people with a nuclear bomb goes off, and all the teeth are falling out and their hair's falling out and stuff. I think his wife dies and he has to bury her, and it was horrible.
It was horrible.
They're using the same animator as the bloody snowman.
It was traumatic, and you know that's the point. With this idea, this simple idea, they managed to traumatize and terrify an entire generation of people. Yeah, but the truth is, if they had nuclear capability, it would have been used. Right? The people we're talking about are so deranged and psychopathic. They'd have used it several times by now.
Even if they'd have had, can you remember when 9/11 happened and they were talking about mini nukes and all this type of nonsense in the buildings, and there are actually no hallmarks of anything like that from what their propaganda said a nuke did. So how could it have been a mini nuke to start with? But if they'd have wanted to, they could have devised bombs of nuclear, let's just say, warheads that are smaller, that they could detonate and just blow small areas up. If they'd have really had these things, they wouldn't have had to blow massive towns up. They could have just done it in small areas, couldn't they, to scare people?
Yeah, I heard a story that they tried to invent nuclear hand grenades, but nobody could throw them far enough.
Little tiny little mushroom cloud, poof.
Nuclear blow dart.
The other thing I looked into was Chernobyl, because that was the other thing that scared us, didn't it? At one point.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So when you actually look into it, you find that hardly anybody died. I think it ended up like 13, even though the first reports were thousands and thousands. Everyone who got sick were actually healed. I don't know. They got some. I don't know what it was, but
that's not what it showed in the award-winning BBC miniseries.
Of course not.
Just in time to scare the shit out of everyone before they started talking about nuclear war again.
It's funny. I got to know the city. I think it's Pripyat. I got to know it intimately because I used to play Call of Duty, and there was one of the stages was walking around this nuclear wasteland. So there was a swimming bar, everything, and I remember watching the video back of the old reports of Chernobyl and recognizing the whole area.
Because they scanned it for the game. They
scanned it for the game. But the point is that there were a whole load of people who didn't leave the hot zone. There was a group of old women actually who refused to leave the so-called hot zone, and they were quite happy living there. Nobody got a radiation sickness or anything, and all the wildlife returned to the area. Yeah, so all the wildlife returned and flourished because there were no humans there. Yeah,
well, there were wild animals still living there and birds tweeting around, weren't there? Wolves and things like that all flourished because there were none of us there.
And also,
Yeah.
Dave, I was just saying to Don before he came on, we've set off 2,056 nuclear bombs around the Earth, testing them. So how can anywhere be habitable anymore? You know, Bikini Island and all that. How can any of this, you know, do you remember, I think one of the last ones were France, wasn't it? Do you remember? There were a big hoo-ha. They shouldn't be setting off nuclear bombs, but it were all right for everyone else to set them off, as usual. But France are obviously so dangerous. Set them off.
Good advert for swimwear, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bikini Island. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no way with all that nuclear testing they supposedly did that this world would be habitable at all. Now, somebody actually, I can't remember who it was now. This is a while back before I looked at this ages and ages ago, so it's hard for me to remember all the details. But somebody showed how they pulled this thing off. What they did with the first nuclear test was they had two groups of soldiers setting up the nuclear the first nuclear test, and so both teams were told they were setting up the alternate site, which was going to be full of conventional weapons, conventional bombs, to sort of compare with the nuclear test. So both teams said, "Oh no, it's the other team that are building the nuclear."
The whole placebo two-step.
Right. So yeah, they managed to fake it with the people there, and with the films. I think you were showing some of the films. I didn't get there at the beginning, but you were showing some of the films. But looking at it now, you can see they're all just models.
Yeah. And, them cars tipping over, and them. How did the camera stay still? You know
exactly. And yeah, when you look closely, there are things that just like when you look at the ISS and people floating around there, you'll see the mistakes. Like in one scene, all the trees were planted like a forest, but then as the explosive wave comes over, right, they're all planted in straight lines. Yeah, so it's like continuity errors and things like that. So yeah, it was designed to frighten people back in the 60s, but for people who'd only see that film once and never see it again. Yeah. But we've got the internet and we've got video that we can just go back to and look at it and
analyze it now,
and we're a little bit more critical than we were in the 60s as well, I would say.
It's also good news, isn't it, really, when you think, because if these things don't exist, then just the threat of what the hell was that? Just the threat of some
it's a bomb.
Yeah, just the threat of some fake nuclear nonsense. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still capable of doing horrible, evil shit to us out there and to the rest of the world, but at least that doesn't exist, so it's kind of good news, I suppose.
Well, the people that we're up against, the enemy we have, are masters of deception. Okay. I don't want to go back into my usual Bible trope, but the ancestor of the people we're up against is described as a cunning hunter. Yeah, so
talk about it, Dave. Talk about whatever you want. I mean,
okay. Well, the war that we're in is the war of two brothers from the Old Testament, Esau and Jacob, and Esau represents the fallen angels, and he was described as a cunning hunter. He would inveigle men, as in charm them and kind of get to know them and all that stuff, and figure them out. And that's what they've done. All those experiments, psychological experiments from the 50s and 60s, the Stanley Milgram experiment, the lift experiment, all these experiments to check out how we would react to things. They're all there to figure out how they can manipulate our minds. And as I said, masters of deception. It makes sense if they could trick everybody into believing they've got these, horrible world-ending, devices, right? And then sort of show us the horrible aftermath of using them, right? Then they could keep us in fear for our whole lives.
I mean, what is it, Dave? They worked out that a human cat put up with three lots of trauma at one time psychologically. So they stop being able to make clear decisions when they've got three lots of trauma going on. And if you think about the trauma that we're bombarded with, certainly since 2020, but before that as well, it's cranked up even more now, hasn't it? Even more so now. Everything's traumatic now. There were some blue sky at some going back over the last few decades, but now it's all grey and awful,
you can boil it down to just fear, right? If they can induce fear in a population, then that population is easy to control. All they need to do is be the one to say, "Don't worry, we'll save you," and we'll fall in line. Yeah.
Yes.
And you just have to see the headlines, just recently, of all these new killer viruses that are out there that are just about to come on, just like COVID. Yeah. It's now transparent, very transparent, even for the sleepiest muggle to see the fear they're trying to pump into.
I think there's quite a few muggles. I think there's still quite a few muggles. Sadly, Dave. I think there's quite a few muggles. There are a few waking up, but they're not waking up quick enough, I don't think, to get that extra booster.
Did I tell you? Did I ever tell you where I think these muggles come from, or the people we call NPCs? Did I mention this on the show?
You might have done. Let's talk about it.
Well, it's almost science fiction-y, really.
In everything now.
Yeah.
Reality is science fiction.
It is. Well, if you think of what science fiction is, it's actually them showing us what's coming up, really.
They're witchcraft.
Yeah. So about just over 100 years ago, there was a phenomenon of these babies in incubators. So just out of nowhere, hundreds of thousands of babies in incubators. I think they first were shown in the Chicago World Fair in 1893. So there was the baby incubator building, a massive building, and it was like rows and rows and rows of all these babies in incubators. There was no explanation of where they came from. The mothers weren't there. They were, these were premature babies. You'd think the mothers would be close by, but no word of the mothers. It turns out that in 1891, there was a guy called, and now I'm going to blank on the name, it'll come back to me, but there was a guy, a German guy who invented cloning 2 years before. So I'm guessing, I'm putting two and two together, that in 1891, guy invents cloning. 2 years later, all these babies in incubators appeared for no apparent reason. So I think they cloned all these babies, right? Now, what happened 6 or 7 years later were orphans. So hundreds of thousands of orphans obviously came from these babies that came from nowhere. These orphans appeared, and they were shipped off across the world. In America, they went from New York, 300,000 of them, all shipped all around the country to populate all the towns. Right. Same thing happened in England. They went off across the Commonwealth, and the same thing happened in Russia. Got shipped off across Russia and Europe. So I believe that when they created these clones, they could create the bodies, fair enough, but what they couldn't create was that the player, the sense of
the
I,
grey matter.
Yes, these bodies had a spirit that allowed them to walk around and do stuff, but that self-reflexive, being that knows that they're there, as it were.
They couldn't recreate that part of it.
They couldn't recreate it, and it turns out there are people, a whole population of people here that don't have an inner monologue. They don't have that voice in their heads they can have a conversation with. Yeah. So if you were to explain something to me, I'd be listening in my head. I'd be going, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder if that connects to that video I watched last week. I've got to remember to ask him this, because if that's right, then this must be right. So while you're talking to me, I'd be able to, in real time, I can analyze what you're saying and then sort of get my own interpretation and my own, knowing, as it were. If you can't have that voice in your head, if you don't have that voice in your head, how do you do that? Oh, sorry. I've just...
That voice in my head just got louder then.
My camera's
And
one of these
larger.
clever,
Yeah.
weird AI ones. Hang on. Zoom out further. There you go. See, look.
I think that's a bit even more freakier.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't got that voice in your head, how can you assimilate new information? It's interesting that around about that same time, the school system came in to inculcate into people obeying authority. That's it. Obey authority. Do what you're told, right? So imagine these orphan children, right, from a very young age, were indoctrinated in this school system. They got the obey authority program, but after about 6 or 7, a normal human will start to develop that critical thinking skills by self-analyzing. If you can't do that, and all you've got is the obey authority programming, or maybe you've got loads of people out there who can't assimilate new information, but all they can do is obey authority.
I once watched
it just kind of makes sense.
A lecture by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, and her lecture were called Designer Autism, along the similar lines. But she was coming from it from quite a where she said they're designing people to do the jobs of the future. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things go wrong in that side of it. As well. I know a couple of people in the chat have got children with autism, and we know realistically what causes a lot of these things to happen. I won't go into it here, so there's certainly even in the books like Aldous Huxley's books or all them type of dystopia novels, they've all got this type of thing in them, haven't they? Every single one of them has got this type of mind control, eugenics type, changing a human to do what they're told without questioning, etc., etc.
I told you, this is what science fiction is at its heart, is getting us ready for what they have planned for us. Yeah, it's predictive programming. And it's funny that you mentioned autism, actually. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, it's even more than predictive programming, isn't it? They actually know it's going to happen. It's not even predictive, it's actually programmed. It's part of the program that's running, isn't it? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Again, the battle that we're in isn't a physical one; it's a spiritual one. And in the spiritual realm that we've been cut off from intentionally, right? There's a lot more going on. And my latest research is all about this. I call it the fourth dimension. Right? We have abilities beyond the third dimension here, right? That let me step back a sec, because you mentioned autism, right? It just so happens that I believe that the autistic children are going to be the ones that save us. This might sound really weird, but I invite people listening to go and search out a podcast called The Telepathy Tapes. Yeah.
Someone sent me that, Dave. I've got it lined up to listen to, and I totally forgot about it. Yeah, someone sent me
seriously,
that.
Go listen to it, because I talk about the fourth dimension. I talk about the fact that we inhabit more than one dimension. We're just barely aware of the fourth dimension, right? But every time you imagine you're doing something in the fourth dimension, every time you go to sleep, your consciousness is shifted into a different dimension, right? And in that dimension, you've got access to the whole of time and space, every bit of information that has ever happened, that will ever occur, in the whole, across the whole of time and space. You've got access to all that. And it turns out that non-verbal autistic children, right? So these children who have been classed by this society as functional idiots, so there's no way they can learn anything. There's no way they're connecting with anything in this reality, according to the society. These children, they not only can speak many languages, right? They've got intimate knowledge of history, physics, chemistry, whatever.
Yeah, instantly
Even
as well. I
instantly.
met a young lad on holiday, and he came up to me. He was with his parents. He kept asking me what's your name, and I told him my name. What's your date of birth? Told him my date of birth, and as soon as I got the year out, like 25th September 1969, he went, "You're 55." And instantly, he didn't even have to think about what age was. He just said it. Like we'd be like, "It's 1, 2, fucking." That's how. I know that's only one crap example, but
well, it turns out the non-verbal ones who because we're really familiar with the autistic savants who can do feats of mathematics or music or art or whatever, but the non-verbal ones that are considered total, trying to think of a word, but retards, right? They're actually the only thing they can't do is communicate, but within. Well, step back a second. What the difference has been is that somebody came up with this idea of giving them a letter board to actually point out letters to actually communicate with, because to speak involves really fine motor skills, with the mouth and stuff. Yeah, but to point doesn't doesn't need fine motor skills. It's like, ugh, yeah. So giving an autistic child a letterboard and say, okay, point out the letters of the words you want to say. Well, they ended up being able to communicate. What came out of it was not only are these children telepathic because they already know what the mother's thinking, right? But they can speak multiple languages. They've got in-depth knowledge of all sorts of things that you need to learn in this world. But they already know these things. And what's really more intriguing about it is they've got a place that these non-verbal autistic children go, and it's a place in another dimension where they meet. They call it the hill, and they meet at this hill and they can communicate with each other on the hill. Okay,
right.
Sorry.
No, it's all right, man. Go on.
I was just going to say the really, really exciting thing, because I got into this because I started finding out about a guy called Jacobo Grinberg. He's a Mexican scientist who was looking into consciousness and looking into how this world works. And then all of a sudden he disappeared. He wasn't killed, taken off by the CIA, or he didn't die, or he just disappeared. Right. He once said something like, when you find out how this world really works, you don't need to be here. And then he disappeared. Right?
Yeah.
So looking at his work led me on to finding these autistic children. Now, Jacobo Grinberg said, when you get these high functioning psychic people with these abilities, their brains, their hemispheres of their brains are really in coherence. They're working, exactly in sync with each other. Normal people, they're really, the difference between the brain hemispheres is really sort of quite wide, right? But those people who've got these abilities, there's two sides of their brains are in sync. The interesting thing is, when somebody who's neurotypical, an ordinary person with an out of sync brain, spends time with somebody who's in sync, right? The in sync person starts to bring that other person into synchronization, right? Which then gives them the abilities to do what they can do. And it turns out that one of the people helping these autistic children to spell, right, was able to go to the hill as well. So a normal person was able to meet all these children on the hill, which is somewhere that we can't get to yet. Right? So so there's a mechanism for us as a species to move to the next level, right? And it will probably be facilitated by these non-verbal autistic children.
What's your view on we talked about the elite side of things, that they're the sort of bad guys, the satanic side. But is there another side? And I don't want it to be just two sides. I think there are several groups working with each other, like large corporates do, and against each other at times as well. That's my view. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's how it feels to me. What's your view on that sort of take, Dave?
As I said, the Old Testament really tells this entire story. Also, not just what's happened in the past, but what's going to happen in the future. And yes, it is a battle between two sides, right? Two sort of totally opposing sides. There's all these people in the middle, but they're according to our enemy, they're just collateral damage, right? There's just two players in this, and everybody else. And yeah, the problem is that one side doesn't know we're at war. So we're at war with this enemy, but we're only just getting to realize that we're actually at war, and we've been at war for the whole of our lives and the whole of society.
Yeah, constant war. It's just a warfare that we're not used to. This idea of how do they call it? An asymmetrical war. Yeah.
So,
somebody just put a comment in here about that. We're not saying that these jabs that probably tip people over the edge mentally are benevolent to us. It's a side effect that they might be benevolent, probably. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, I think this is a chess match. As I said, this isn't a physical war. This is a spiritual war. So it's a chess match that's going on. So one side makes a move, the other side counters it. So yes, they introduce these jabs to cause autism, right? Which will probably get you banned now. I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, you get these jabs that cause autism. But on the other side, the next
you get me banned twice now.
Yeah, sorry.
Says it again.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said autism. Oops, I said it again. Yeah, so they give out these jabs to cause that thing, and on the other side, the counter move is, well, that affliction, should we call it, actually unlocks things that will be useful later on. Yeah, unlocks abilities that we're all trying to get back to.
I mean, I would say that autism isn't just the bad side of toxic whatever ingestion or with an arm spear, for instance. It is part of a eugenics program. It's a plan. They knew that this was going to happen. They know that there are different levels of it as well, because they wouldn't allow it to. It can't happen just by accident. I don't believe.
Do you know what I would think, Tom, is it's not when they use that word autism. I think they use it for a lot of different things, and I think they blanket all these different things with that word. That's where that spectrum came from.
Yes,
and it's different things. It's not all the same thing. Do you know what I mean? You've got the savant level and super intelligent level, but you've also got people, unfortunately, quite violent to themselves and other people around them. And I think they're different. I think it's a different thing. They've just used it to blanket everything. Okay. That's my opinion anyway. I'm not sure I'm right.
I was just going to say that, with the vaccines, right, there was a guy.
This ain't staying up. This one, is it? This ain't staying.
Did I say it again?
It's too late, man. It's we're live. We can't go backwards.
Okay, with those things.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Rudolf Steiner spoke about it.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm just going to paraphrase. He said, a vaccine will be developed that will, I can't remember it, but that will essentially keep you in the left-hand side of your brain, right? And so that you can only, you can only believe that there's. I'm really butchering this.
It's not your fault, Dave. We put you on the spot, mate. We dragged you in.
We stood you up, then dragged you in.
Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, it just says that you will not even consider that there's anything beyond the world that you see and perceive with your senses. Right. So
when was it he wrote that? Was that like
it has to be early 19th century, if not late 1800s.
20s or 30s or something like that.
Yeah.
But but that is, just one aspect of a plan, right? All-encompassing plan that's to keep you in your left brain.
I'll tell you another part of that as well, Dave. In that book I have here, Prince of this World, Satan, Prince of this World. I mean, he wrote that in the 50s. I've mentioned this quite a few times on our podcast.
Is that what you read to your youngest for bedtime?
Like read bedtime. Satan, Prince of this World.
Yeah.
But in there, he says, and he wrote that in the 50s or 60s, he said, when it comes to the crunch, they will use medical interventions to take their own people out as well as us. So they will take the people who think they're on side. And we've actually seen that, haven't we? Since 2020, where people who you would think were part of the system have perished.
It's a numbers game. They're part.
That's what I mean.
They're part of the cull.
They've taken their own folk down with them. I mean, it immediately springs to mind that woman. Was she YouTube exec or something? Dom? I can't remember.
Yeah. She was. Wozniacki. She was the Google exec, YouTube exec.
So you would have thought she were on side and had all the secrets and all the knowledge, but she got taken down.
Well, isn't it always the way that the collaborators are the first ones that get killed?
Yes.
So, back in the Nazis, that's you collaborate with them. While you were useful, you're there, but as soon as you weren't useful anymore,
nobody trusts you. You're not on anyone's side, are you?
Exactly.
You're willing to flip flop at any.
And what have we seen? We've seen all those influencers who are trying to get people taking the jab. Right, they're all starting to die off. Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's a good point. Yeah.
Just flipping back to the nuclear nonsense, I've got the trailer for Threads.
Oh yeah,
I'll play that. It's a couple of minutes long.
Scared the shit out of me. That did.
Yeah, it were a scary one. I'll put it on. It's the original trailer with Yorkshire accents.
Cringe, innit, Dev?
Oh, I'd love to live out in that country, wouldn't you, Jimmy?
Would it?
Why not?
It's dead.
The unprovoked attack on our submarine and the move into Iran are the actions of a reckless and warlike power. I have to warn the Soviets in the clearest possible terms that they risk taking us to the brink of an armed confrontation with incalculable consequences for all mankind.
I know, but don't it scare you what it might lead to? It bloody scares me. There's no we can do about it, is there? Tell you one thing, if the bomb does drop, I want to be pissed out of my mind and straight underneath it when it happens.
There's growing evidence overnight from scientists and observers in many countries that there have been 2 nuclear explosions in the Middle East.
The most widespread danger is fallout. Fallout is dust that is sucked up from the ground by the explosion. Fallout can kill.
Ten orders! £1.50 a goal! Come on, all of you! £1.50 to save your life!
When you hear the attack warning, you and your family must take cover at once. Do not stay out of doors. If you are caught in the open, lie down.
It's 8:30 a.m., 3:30 in the morning in Washington. Over the past 4 days, neither the president nor his senior staff will have had more than a few hours rest. This is when they may be asleep. This is when Western response will be slowest.
As we expected, nearly all the supermarket shelves are empty, but we've managed to get the warehouses controlled by the police. As yet, we haven't located all the root vegetable clumps on local farms, but stocks of sugar, wheat, flour and rice are quite good.
Attack warning? Is it for real? Attack warning? It's for bloody real!
Is it?
Do you know? I remember that roof falling on that guy when I were a kid. It shipped me up there.
Effects haven't got much better since 1940, have they?
No.
I remember the estate. There was a shot of the estate, which is actually in Hackney, right, exploding. I thought, well, that estate really needs to come down.
I remember the melting milk bottle and a woman peeing herself, peeing her pants, and it like splatting on the floor.
Well,
sure that was that film, Chris. Sure that was that film.
What reminds
scared the shit out of me.
That reminds me of is the event in the 1930s with War of the Worlds and Orson Welles doing the radio broadcast. So that they did it as like a news story, yeah. Just like Leslie Judd. It was Leslie Judd, wasn't it? In doing that news story.
Yeah.
In that clip you just showed.
I don't know who it was, but yeah, name rings a bell.
I don't know.
Yeah,
from Blue
Leslie
Peter. I
rings a bell.
think it's from Blue Peter.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in that sort of very news anchory kind of voice. So they did that radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. Orson Welles did it like it was a news broadcast, and it terrified everybody so much that people committed suicide. Armed gangs of people went out and shot a water tower because they thought it was an alien. All sorts of weird things because people believed it. It was the first test of a media weapon. And
because I think they made out it were incidental or accidental, but it were obviously some kind of government test, wasn't it, to see the reaction?
It turned out it was funded by the Rockefellers. Would you believe?
I can't believe that. No, I can't believe it.
So I mean that was the power of radio, but you can see what the how much further the power of television would take it. Yeah?
I don't know if you heard that what we talked about, Dave. I'll mention it again here, Dom. When the film Oppenheimer came out a couple of years ago, got all the awards, got all etc. Just in time for when the Soviet, people start talking about Russian nuclear bombs again. Just in time, Oppenheimer comes out. I mean, how long does it take?
What was the other one that came out? His brother did.
And then at the exact same time on Amazon, a show called Fallout came out, which is a video game. But again, talking about nuclear war, and it was written by Christopher Nolan, who directed Oppenheimer's brother. Jonathan Nolan. Exact same time, these two things come out showing nuclear war. Far worse than Threads was, by the way. Threads was almost documentary-like. These are proper high-end Hollywood productions, putting the fear of God into everyone about nuclear weapons. Again, at exactly the same time, and exactly the same time as the news is saying, "Oh, could there be a nuclear bomb? Oh, could there be..." I mean, if that ain't propaganda live in your face, I don't know what is.
You'll be hard pressed to find any science fiction that doesn't take place in a post apocalyptic world. They've been training us for that. Yeah. Been training us for that for generations. Yeah. So no, it's they've brought in this media because they know how it can affect our minds. Right. Television gives you a false reality. Yeah, because your subconscious can't tell what you're seeing is not real. Yeah, your conscious mind can look at it and go, "Oh, it's a TV show," but your subconscious doesn't know that. It just takes it as reality.
I've actually heard people say. I remember when that Churchill film came out with Gary Oldman in it. People said it's like a documentary. I'm like, no, it's fucking not a documentary. It's a film.
No, it's like bullshit.
It's a film to sell you a narrative. That's all it is. Yeah. And I've heard people say it about The Crown as well. In fact, I heard on the radio, they said they should put a warning at the beginning of The Crown because people think it's all real. But it's an enactment of some situations that might possibly have happened. But we're so... And all of us are guilty of this. All, growing up, I suppose, of taking it all so seriously. But it's not serious. It's supposed to be entertainment, but it's not entertainment, is it? It's telling you probably more truth than the news is in the long run.
Again, think of it. This is a technology that was introduced to the whole world at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah. Bang.
Right. So think about it. Yeah. You are watching events happening in front of you. Right. Now, again, your conscious mind can say, well, it's on television. right? But the events are happening in front of you, so your subconscious goes, well, this is real. How many times have you watched a TV show or film, right, where you got scared, or you wanted to cry, or you were really happy, or whatever? You had some emotional response to it. Well, that's because there's a part of you that believes it's real. It's suspended disbelief and believes it's real. So it gives you a false experience. Okay. Now, one of the things that, if you ever watched EastEnders, anything like that,
not for a while,
right?
Well, Chris has watched Double Enders.
I don't want to know what that is. But the thing is, when you watch it, you watch a false experience. You get a false experience of these things, right? It just sits in the back of your mind until you hit a situation in your own life that's similar to that experience, and you just replay what you've already experienced. So false experience.
That's proper Manchurian Candidate stuff, that, isn't it?
Well, also,
that is proper Manchurian Candidate programming.
People argue like they're in EastEnders, but it's not because people naturally argue like that. It's because they've been trained by shitty soap operas and other things.
I know, and when I argue with Mrs., I hate putting that Cockney accent on.
Well, how many times have you said, why did I do that? Why did I act like that?
Yeah.
It's because you've just been playing out something you watched maybe 10 years ago or something. It's really insidious. This machine wasn't invented for our entertainment.
When we did our Huxley presentations, there were two of Aldous Huxley's cousins, direct Huxleys, but they were called Eckersley. They were one of his grandfather's sisters, father's sisters' children. They were part of the founding of the BBC. They worked high up in for the military and for Marconi, and then went on to. One of them was the first chief engineer of the BBC, Peter Eckersley, I think it was called. He just got these tentacles all the time. I tell you what we found as well, going back to the Oppenheimer film. Chris, for some reason, started getting leads that were one of Christopher Nolan's mates who does his set designs. Is called Nathan Crowley, and we found out that Nathan Crowley is actually a Crowley. Yeah,
right.
And we found several of these people.
He was a production designer, Dev, on most of Christopher Nolan's films.
A set designer. Yeah.
Well, all of the things you see on TV. I mean, there's nothing you see on TV that wasn't deliberately put there. Yeah. If something happens in the background while they're filming something, the director goes cut. And they do it again, right? Just so that they get to show you exactly what they want you to see, right? So a lot of it is subliminal. It's all in the background in the set design. Yeah, you're watching the film. You're watching the thing in front, right? But your subconscious is reading what's going on behind. Yeah, so they can give you messages without you knowing it.
I suppose in some cases the production designer could have more clout or more ability to put the symbols there than the director or the writer or anybody, because you could just pop them in there and nobody would notice.
As I said in the beginning, the whole thing, everything in our reality has been stage managed, right? Because the difficulty is you've got millions of on our side, and a very, very small number of them on the other side. Yeah. How can this small group, right, exterminate a much, much larger group, right? The only way to do that is to get them to exterminate themselves. Yeah. So
I know, Dave, just ask you a question. I know you've been down this hole for a long, long time, but over the last 5 years, as your awareness to the shenanigans ramped up, as a way to put it, I suppose. Even more.
Not so much ramped up, because essentially I've been watching it. I've been watching it ramping up for the last 20 years. I've been trying to tell people, this is coming. Right? So it's like you've seen it coming. So it's not as if it's new to you. It's not as if there's something you're not aware of, because sometimes it surprises you. You know, it's like I didn't know they were going to go with the whole
arm spears.
flu. You know?
Yeah.
I know through video games and through films and TV and stuff, I was always aware that a lot of media had like hazmat tents up in football ground, like Call of Duty. I'm sure you saw it in that when you were on about that.
Mhm.
Hazmat tents up in like football stadiums and stuff, and no people around, and queue here for your whatever. He was in a lot, and also I remember telling Dom about this. A lot of, and this is going back 10 years. A lot of films showing grass growing through the concrete, and you know, that kind of dystopian kind of look. And I'm not saying they achieved it, but I think maybe that's what they were aiming for, or maybe that's what they got planned. I don't know, but that did happen, didn't it? The white tent, empty streets, white tent in the middle of a football stadium. That all happened, you know, and that was around for 10 years. That was in video games and films and TV shows.
Right. Well, I've my latest research is basically telling us how we control this reality. Right. You literally have a measure of control over your entire reality, because your reality is being generated in here, not out there. Yeah. And so you have a say in how this world, unfolds. So this is the reason for predictive programming and all those messages and stuff, right? To get us to manifest what it is they want to have happen, because they can't do what we can do. Yeah. You know, so I've noticed it when I say my latest talk is about the fourth dimension, and I started to notice when I was writing the talk that the things that I wanted to have happen in my 20s happened in my 30s, because I thought, oh, what a coincidence, or that was lucky that happened, but it turned out it was me that's doing it.
Yeah, you're projecting it.
So,
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And we do it all the time, but we don't realize we're doing it, and we just go, oh yeah, well, that was a coincidence, or that was lucky of me, wasn't it? But no, you actually call it in, and it happens.
I've actually got to a point, Dave, where I'm scared of actually. No, I wouldn't say it's not like you're asking for something either. It's like, I bet I could do that, and the amount of times that actually happens further down the line is unreal. So I've actually reined it in, because I end up giving myself more to do, because it appears it's a bit like I'll call it Grand Theft Auto. I keep calling it, where you're going around looking for prizes, if you like, because you know they're there. You're just trying to uncover them all. And but Grand Theft Auto is, this world is like Grand Theft Auto, because people get prizes for doing bad things, not for doing good things. But that's a totally different angle, I suppose. But I agree with you, though, manifesting stuff for the future.
So one of the things is I wanted to go to live in America. Okay, this is when I was in 20 something. I wanted to live in America. I always had this fantasy of being like Magnum PI. Remember that, Magnum PI? Not only that, we
won't get away with that look, Dave, me and you, mate, or Chris.
No anymore.
No matter how big a stash was.
I wanted that lifestyle. I wanted the Ferrari. I wanted to be driving around America and all that. So I tried to make it happen in 3D. I went to I think it was the American Embassy or something like that, and I said, how can I go and live in America? And the guy said to me, do you have any money? I said, no. Do you have a special skill? No. Do you have, and he just went through all these things. I was going, no. And he said, no, sorry, there's no way you can go to live in America. So I just sort of just put it on the back of my mind. And one day I was at work, and I got a promotion, and my boss said, I'm not going to allow this promotion. Right, because it's I don't like people poaching my staff. So just to piss him off, I applied for lots and lots of jobs outside of BT. I was working for BT at the time, so I applied for all these jobs outside of BT, not because I wanted them, just because I'm going to put them all on my desk so he would see them and get pissed off. So I applied for all these jobs, and it turned out he couldn't block my promotion. So I started this new job in BT. And about a month later, I got a call from this company in New York and said, "You got the job, Dave." I was like, "What?" So one of the jobs that I applied for was in New York, and this company sorted everything out, and and all the barriers disappeared, and I ended up living in America for 15 years. But on top of that though, I joined the fire department, which was another little fantasy of mine that I had out before I went out there. I
What,
joined
like
the
in a
fire
topless
department.
calendar type of way?
YMCA just sprang to mind.
Yeah, so the town I was in just happened to have a volunteer fire department, so I volunteered, and I went to the fire academy. And when you start in the fire academy, everyone, all the rookies, get a nickname. And for some reason, I don't know, I didn't tell them anything, they called me Magnum.
Fucking hell.
I think it's because of the chalk ice, but
yeah,
but,
yeah.
Fellas, can I just tell you something, Dave and Spooky Dom? This is a fucking weird synchronicity that I'm.
Have you heard what he calls me, Dave? Right? Have you heard our language to it? He calls me Spook.
Oh,
right.
No.
Yeah.
It's quite a derogatory, but it's from from
not between two brothers.
Not between two brothers, but it's from Hot Chocolate Song, Louie Louie.
Yeah.
And the white guy said, "I don't want no spook in my family." Do you remember? So
I remember that.
Since we were kids, I've called him Spook.
Yeah. My mum used to love it when we called each other names. Yeah.
Anyway, this is very strange that you've just talked about Magnum for so long, right? There's a young lad at work, right, and he's got floppy hair, and you know when he's like 18 and he's got like a whisker of a tash,
twocking tash.
Yeah. And this last week, and I brought it up again today. I said to him, because I obviously knew he didn't know Magnum was. He's got floppy hair, and I said, "Oh, your tash is coming along. You look like fucking Magnum PI." And he immediately went and Googled it, and he went, "You twat." That was today, Dave. Yeah, well, that was last week.
Oh, wow.
Then today,
Okay.
I brought it up again. He saw me, and I went, "Oh, did you tell your mum that I called you Magnum PI?" And he went, "No, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction." But yeah, we would I mean, how often do you discuss Magnum PI?
Yeah. It's not a daily occurrence, is it?
I discussed it last week and this week, and I probably haven't discussed it for 10 years or 20 years. And now you're talking about Magnum PI, and now we're having a discussion about Magnum PI. That just is one of those synchronicities that we've been talking about.
So synchronicities, Dave, we do a podcast every now and again called Synchronicities, right? Just basically telling stories, because we're in our view, and probably yours as well, we're witnessing the coding there, because there's only so much coding that can be used within this reality.
Sorry, Dom, Anthony COVID just put 3 hot chocolates on tonight.
Sexual chocolate. Right, it's all coming out now, innit? Why did we mention all this crap? So synchronicities, what do you think synchronicities are? It's not a catch question, by the way. It's just your opinion.
As I said, I didn't say this. This is a thought-based reality. Yeah, everything is made of thought, which is energy, which is the electromagnetic spectrum. That's it. That's all there is here, right? Just waves of energy, right? Structured by information. And we perceive that information and build a 3D world for ourselves in our heads, essentially. Okay. So what you call synchronicity is ourselves, okay. This is going to sound
it's not going to sound strange to us, but
well, to us lunatics, listen to this.
Yeah, it sounds really strange, Dave. Yeah. Magic roundabout sounds strange to us.
All right, so I'll give you a little example. I used to tell people about how to deal with trauma, and you kind of one way is that you sort of identify where that trauma came from. Right, I'm giving you the short version here, right? And you literally go back to that time. Let's say you suffered a trauma when you were 8 years old. Yeah, you go back to that time in your mind. And imagine yourself talking to yourself as an 8-year-old from your perspective as an adult now, right? And you give your 8-year-old self the adult perspective of that trauma, because more often than not, that 8-year-old got that wrong, got that situation wrong, misunderstood it, and caused that trauma, right? But when you give that child that adult perspective, right, usually, you know, that trauma sets up a little program that runs in the back of your head from that point onwards, right? And it guides your perceptions, it guides your actions ever since that moment. But if you go back and imagine yourself and teach that child that it got it wrong from your adult perspective, right, then that program is no longer needed anymore and it will fade away. But here's the thing. When you do that act of imagining, right, that is you in another dimension, in the fourth dimension, accessing that object, which is the whole of time and space, all happening all at once, all in one place. Yeah. You're drilling into that object and finding you as an 8-year-old and talking directly to that 8-year-old, right? So when you were 8, you had a voice in your head that went, you know, it's not your fault, you know. And you went, oh, okay. And you healed yourself then, which heals you in the present. Okay. So you become your own higher self. You are your higher self. And the reason you're the higher self is because you've learned more. You've raised your consciousness to a level that's way, way above you when you were 8 years old.
Which if this was a benevolent world, we'd be being taught this, wouldn't we, from an early age anyway, to expand it, you know.
Absolutely.
At school, rather than how many wives Henry VIII had, which is very important.
Well, no, you wouldn't be at school because if think about it, school is about keeping you in your left brain now,
and to teach
it's
you to
completely
do a job
academic.
It's a job that you don't like.
Yeah, school is just another corporate training centre, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, but for the purposes of what I'm talking about now, it's school is all about keeping you in your left brain. I mean, do you remember doing drama at school and cookery and woodwork and all those right-brained, you know, activities?
Yeah.
Do you think they're doing that now?
They don't exist now, do they?
You know, and it's all, no, it's all academic.
They don't need woodwork, Dave. They just go to IKEA.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned pottery in my second year at junior school, and I make sculptures now, and it stuck with me from one teacher who was really passionate about pottery and sculpture and stuff, you know, and pushed me with my art and stuff. Do they even exist anymore in like a junior school? A pottery teacher with a kiln?
No, not really. No, because it's about keeping your left brain, just like the Maxines. So thank you for whoever said that in the chat. Just like the Maxines were there to keep you in your left brain. Your language keeps you in your left brain. There's so many things keeping you grounded in this world, so that you don't know there's anything more in, you know, in let's say the spirit
and also
where your right brain.
And also, Dave, I've had this discussion with so many people lately. Is you know, your kids got to pass them exams. Kids having sleepless nights because they might not pass their exams. Traumatizing them. They're 15-year-old and they're trying to plan out what they're going to be doing for the rest of their existence. It's insanity, absolute insanity.
Well, we went through that. I mean, we were told that we had to figure out what we were going to do for the rest of our lives at 13. Didn't we?
I was told I was unemployable.
What you?
I was told I was unemployable. The teacher looked me in the eyes and said, "You're unemployable." Thank you.
I got told that I was unemployable as well, Chris, so it must run in the family. He had an added caveat there too. You'd probably be inside in a few years.
Never been out of a job since we're 12, but I'm unemployable. Whatever.
Well, you probably got the best advice out of everybody. If you realise you're unemployable, you probably went out and
I was unemployable. That's why I worked for myself.
Well, yeah, he did probably push you, but maybe that's why he did it. But it's still really not the right way to go about it, is it? Making the little kid feel like shit.
But you've got teachers who are all traumatizing the next generation as they're coming along and inserting nonsense into their heads as they go along with it.
Well, that trauma started a lot longer or a lot further back. I mean, I think most of the trauma started with Santa Claus.
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
I have a 6-year-old, Dave, and although I wouldn't dare, because I get into trouble, but I won't dare say that Santa doesn't exist. But I've never verbally said he does, and I've never said, if you don't do this, you're going to be in trouble. And my nipper has actually said to me, do you believe in Santa Claus, Dad? And I've gone, what do you think? And she went, I don't know. So I've left it open, and I refuse to lie to her. Because I think it's a traumatic event to find out that your parents have lied to you.
It is. I mean, at 4 or 5 years old, right, your parents are the fount of absolute truth. Right? You wouldn't even dream of thinking your parents aren't telling you the truth. And then, you know, they tell you this guy who's coming around on a sleigh and dropping presents to you and everything. And, you know, you believe it. Absolutely. Mum and dad told me, so it must be true. And then you kind of find out, no, they were doing it all the time. They lied to you. The first people that you trust the most lied to you to your face.
And I would hazard a guess that Satan Claus story is done on purpose from somewhere back in history.
Absolutely.
It's probably related to Prince Charles, King Charles, wherever he is now.
Right. So I didn't actually answer your question. Synchronicities are often messages to yourself from yourself. Probably mostly from the future.
That's an interesting.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Angle. Yeah. And that one.
So somebody told a good one the other day that they were stuck on a train going down to London, and he said to his missus, "Wouldn't it be good if another train pulled up and was in the same situation, and it was somebody we knew that was staring at us across the window? 2 minutes later, train pulled up, and it was the neighbour or something like that." And they went, "Fucking hell!" at each other. It'd have been strange enough if he hadn't said that, but
yeah, I mean, if anybody will look back through their lives and look at it with open eyes, you'll find that you probably had, you know, dozens and dozens of synchronicities like that, and there are others that we didn't even notice.
Probably billions,
you know,
across your life.
You know,
probably billions.
So do you think the more that you notice these things, the more maybe your future self is
seeing the cracks?
Yeah, you're more open to and willing to see them. Because we like Dom said, we did a show about it, and the amount of people that emailed in with these bizarre synchronicities, it's loads.
I mean, there are some that are totally, you know, I wouldn't call them all irrelevant, but some are small. Then other ones are like, wow, you know, like that guy's there. That was a crazy one. And some are even.
I had one, Dave. Let me just tell you one, Dave, that was a cracker. Right, I make sculptures, and for Christmas, I know it sounds stupid, my missus wanted a bear toilet holder. Toilet roll holder. Sounds ridiculous, but I make sculptures, and I was looking at this sculpture of this bear with a toilet roll holder, and I thought, you know, the little mechanism in the middle, you squash it, you put your toilet roll on, and I thought, I can make a toilet roll holder. It'd make a really good one with my sculptures, a big mouth with a toilet roll holder in the middle. The next day, I ordered it. I found these things, and I ordered them. They turned up, and I had them for about 3 or 4 days. My son phoned me, and he said, bear in mind, I've been making sculptures for 30 years. Never occurred to me to make a toilet roll holder. My son rang me, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I had an idea. Why don't you make toilet roll holders?" And I said, "Son, he arrived 2 days ago." You can't even, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it was just, that probably the most blatant one I've had for a long time.
Well, think about this. If you decided you wanted to buy a car, right, and you thought, you know what, I want, and I keep using this, a red Ford Fiesta. Yeah. What's the first thing you're going to see?
Red Ford Fiesta. Everywhere.
Everywhere. You're going to see them everywhere, aren't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Right. Well, it turns out that it isn't because now that you're attuned to a red Ford Fiesta that when you see it, you go, "Oh, I noticed it." Yeah. No. What happens is, statistically, more red Ford Fiestas are going to present themselves in front of you, because you've called them in. Now, people might think, "Oh, that's silly," but there's I'm looking for this software actually right now because I saw it on a video, but there's what they call random number generators that spit out ones and zeros, and they can get a meditator to meditate on this machine producing ones and zeros and say, okay, make it produce more ones and zeros. And sure enough, it produces more ones and zeros. But this software that I saw just recently, it will give you a graph, a live graph of the statistical. Okay, so in the background, it's choosing ones and zeros. And when it's sort of 50%, then the line stays flat. And if it's more ones, then the line goes up, and if it's more zeros, the line goes down. And it's doing it in real time. Okay, so you can sit there and concentrate on it and say, I want more ones. And as you look at it and concentrate, it will start showing more ones. And when you say, I want more zeros, it will start going down. Yeah, because you're doing it. You are doing it. You are calling in red Ford Fiestas. You are calling
Dave,
in.
do you think
these happy accidents?
Just as a thought, you know, like everyone talks about the fact that the phone's listening to them and adverts pop up. Do you think that possibly they are listening to them at the moment, you know, and then an advert pops up, and that's a cover for the fact that they will actually be reading your fucking brain at some point? Do you know as black scrying mirrors that we all carry around?
Well, Aldous Huxley said that not just in his Brave New World, but in an interview on BBC in 1961
and in 1984. The ultimate goal is to read your mind. You know, no matter how much money they spend on bombs and blowing each other and killing each other, the ultimate goal was always to be able to read the human brain, because that's the only space that you have for yourself, really, is in your head.
Sure, but here's the thing. What they've been doing with technology, right, is replicating what we can do naturally.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So you know, we can communicate telepathically, yeah? But, you know, if you use a phone, which is replicating what we can do naturally, right, it diminishes your telepathic ability, okay? There was, there was something I was gonna bring up that it's gone. Mandela effect. Yeah. Okay, we cause our own Mandela effects all the time, right? I use the example of manifesting a car parking space, right? When you manifest a car parking space, you literally go back in time, and not consciously, obviously, you go back in time, you make a little change to the timeline, which arrives at, you know, as you arrive at Tesco's, and you come up to the car parking space that you want, right? Somebody pulls out because you've already changed the timeline just a bit, so that person pulls out just as you arrive. Okay, we do that. We can go back and make little changes to our timeline. When we do that, though, it's a surgical change. It's like a little tiny change, and the ripples are really, really small, so nobody notices them. But I think they've replicated that ability of ours with technology. I think it's a quantum computer. And when they do it, it's not a tiny change. It's like them with a blunderbuss blasting great big holes in the timeline. Yeah, the ripples are much larger, and we start noticing the ripples. I just noticed one this week, or somebody told me about one this week. Right? Do you remember Laurel Hardy?
Yeah.
Oliver Hardy had a catchphrase. Here's another
fine mess you got me into.
Mess.
Here's another fine mess you got me into.
What was
Here's
it?
another fine mess you got me into.
No.
What is it?
No. It's not now. It's a nice mess.
Bollocks.
Bollocks.
Yeah.
Go and find. Go and
That's
look.
another fine mess you got me into. Yeah,
there's even a film. Yes.
Even
one of their films is called. Even in one of their films, it is called Another Fine Mess. Yeah. But in the film, another nice mess.
No.
No.
Go and have a look.
Yeah.
Go and have a look. That's a big ripple that anybody who's ever seen Laurel Hardy will
Our age group watched them reruns over and over again.
BBC Two when you got them from school, they were on every day, weren't they?
Yeah.
And he said it every episode.
And we all knew that catchphrase, but he never ever said that.
But people will convince you as well, Dave, who don't believe in the Mandela effect. They'll convince you that you're wrong because. No,
even though they think it was Jaws' girlfriend didn't have those shiny teeth, they were, even though they know that she did, they'll still argue. It's so that is the banging pots and pans, the wearing a mask nonsense. It's all the same principle, isn't it? That they're utilising on people to fry the brains. Because when people hear that Oliver Hardy thing, they'll go, "He didn't used to say that. Oh, he must have done."
Because there is some in there.
I must probably.
There is some when it is words that you can actually think, oh, maybe I did, maybe it was that, and but that one's bollocks. No way.
That is all three of us knew that was nonsense.
Yeah.
Sure, most.
Well, I recited it back to Dave just then. and apparently it's changed.
I mean, if it was misremembering, then how is it that we're all misremembering the same thing?
And I would not have just recited that back to you. I would have gone, no, I can't remember, or I would have said the other thing. I mean,
so it's undeniable now that that our timeline is changing, and when the timeline changes, well, we have our own independent record of the events of our life, right? The timeline changes, our memory, our record doesn't.
I think the thing is as well with the Mandela stuff is, it just, no matter what you think, spirituality or whatever you think about the world, it just throws everything out, doesn't it? It throws everything out of sync because you're sure that has shifted, and it just makes everything bizarre and upset, like synchronicities do. They change everything in a good way. But do you think maybe the ramp up of these things is because there's some kind of unveiling or awakening process happening, where we are seeing these things more and more? I think so.
This is the great revealing of truth. This is the apocalypse. So and they knew it was coming. They knew it was coming, so they've rushed to put everything in place.
And I think as well as humans, if there is an awakening or an apocalypse, we kind of, just how we've been programmed with films and TV and stuff, we expect it to happen in a week or 2 weeks, but it almost seems like it's, I don't know, 2000, 2012, I don't know, it's been a very gradual, and slowly it's getting more and more rapid that you're seeing these things open up and more and more and more and more. And then there's going to be some form of crescendo, which could be that we can travel through fucking time with his minds. Sorry for anyone who's just tuned in.
Well, you say that, but think about some of the films and things we've been watching. Of people having extraordinary powers and getting into mess because they've got they know it's coming. They know that we're going to awaken to who we really are and what we can do, and they're trying to manage that. Trying to manage that. Somebody just written in the chat, I think Dave must have mixed some of Chris's witch piss, but they obviously don't know that I've got a supply of my own.
He drinks his own piss. It's a bit stronger than Chris's witch piss. And he didn't have to stamp on 1 million grapes to get a litre of it either.
It's some crazy stuff we talk about, isn't it? If you're not involved, we do sound insane, don't we? I suppose.
But
who cares? Who cares?
Again, talking about this stuff, I mean, where would people have spoken about this in the 1800s, 1900s, 20th century, if you like? This is quite a new phenomenon where grown blokes of our age, right, who were meant to be blokes, talking about things like this. This is another changing of the mindset, isn't it? It has to be, I mean, you've been talking about this on podcasts for well over a decade now, 2 decades nearly now. We've nearly done a decade, but we've been talking about it longer than that, and most people in the chat will have been as well. So it ain't new to us, but there's a lot more people discussing this, isn't there? This spiritual side, this illusion that we're living through.
Well, when I started looking at the fourth dimension, all of a sudden, all these books that I was, just started coming to me from the 1930s, the 1800s, the late 1800s. So this isn't really new. I think it must go through cycles where people, start to get an understanding of it, and then it crashes. Probably because the system sort of stamps down on it, but then it slowly comes back again.
If there's only if there's anything new about it, it's that generally there were sort of academics, weren't there, that were talking about it. We wouldn't be classed as academics, I suppose. I'm not saying all of them were academics, but or I might have got that wrong. I'm not saying I've got it right, but
well, we're not
teachers.
We're not really meant to. We're not really meant to have come across this ourselves because we're supposed to be distracted by all the things that they put out there for us. For the football, by worrying about jobs and money and council tax and all this stuff. We're not meant to be. We're not meant to have the time or the energy to be thinking along these lines.
I always say, Dave, it was like, when they invented when the internet came out, if you like, it was like a starter's gun, because they knew, the controllers that run the shit show knew that they needed the internet and the social media and the phones and everything to be able to tote the controllers. So when they set off that starting gun, they also knew that the spread of information and the rapid, like you said, looking at those on nuke pictures and how rapid it would spread, that was kind of a problem as well. But they needed it to torpedo the control system. But at the same time, as a control system, you had us lunatics all talking to each other. If you know what I mean.
Remember chess moves, yeah. What the enemy makes a move.
I can play that one, but it's going to cause me this kind of stress.
But also, if you look at Matrix 2, the second film, right? That scene with the architect was actually telling us what they were doing, right? Because the architect, if you remember that long boring speech he gave, right? We're meant to kind of ignore that, but what he was saying was, right, in the Matrix, they knew that people were going to start to wake up, so they have to let them go out into their own space, so that they wouldn't destroy the Matrix from within. And then they can deal with that their own space later on. So that's what they've done to us with the internet. They've siloed us into, conspiracy theory, little groups. So, if you're on Facebook, you start spreading information. Well, that information is only going to go out to people who think like you.
Yes.
It's not going to go out to the muggles because they've siloed it off. So, it's the same thing. They've put us in a little area where, we can do what we like in that area so that we don't destroy the Matrix from within.
I did have a thought the other day, and this is kind of it's kind of negative, but I'm just kind of trying to be funny here, right? That there's like this big movement to buy silver and gold and stuff. So people have bought silver and gold. I mean, fair enough, whatever. And I'm actually joking here, but now, so you've bought silver and gold. You're watching certain videos on certain things. When the robot dogs come, they know you've got silver and gold in your house. Kind of a joke, but a bit of an observation that everyone signed up.
But on an easier path than that, I mean, what happened in the 1930s? Right, people had gold and silver and that, and the government said, "Right, we're confiscating that."
Well, who was it? It was that I mentioned him right at the beginning. Roosevelt. It was Roosevelt in his New Deal. That was part of that era, wasn't it? The theft of all the gold. He's a 33 degree.
How did they convince him to give all the gold up? I mean, that must have been some serious
Well,
propaganda.
they said you're starving and you're poor, and because you're starving and you're poor, we need all your gold.
Right.
And then they said, if you don't give us the gold, right, we'll send our police in.
Yeah, basically raid your house.
So
basically brainwashed them, Chris, by saying they weren't proper Americans.
I mean, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Is that why they've told everyone to get silver and gold again?
Probably.
Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't want to be a fearmonger.
Because they don't want us to actually have money outside of their system, especially when they bring in that CBDC thing. Everybody needs to be on it, otherwise it's not going to work for them.
I don't know, if I open my door one day and there's a robot dog stood there with a machine gun on top of it, I don't think I'll even be surprised.
You'd just be stood there with a glass of wine.
I stood with a glass of wine and I go, I fucking knew this was going to happen.
I think those robot dogs could be defeated by a loop of rope, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's true.
Lasso on the ground,
But
roller skate.
Again, even though I've been watching them robot dogs for years, and talking about the fact that they're going to hunt us down, is that just another fear projection thrown at us to get us terrified of something that could possibly maybe happen in the future, but who knows?
No, really? Like
it's like the micro drones, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the micro drones, isn't it? They're the same.
I remember watching videos about those micro drones like 15 years ago. Do you remember? I remember seeing one and it said it could charge up by sitting on a van and going by the vibration of the van. It'd charge up, then it could inject itself as it can blow your head off.
Yeah. I think we've all seen that. The one with a drone that can the shape charge in it that goes to your head and just past you. yes, they could do it, but I don't think they're allowed to do that.
Is that the new nuclear bomb? That kind of technology that they tell us about, maybe?
Yeah, that's what they're positioning it as. You know,
Yeah.
dropping a swarm of those things down and
Yeah.
targeting them, precisely. But again, there's a lot of fear generated by just the perception of that rather than the actual thing. So whether they've got it or they're going to use it is a different matter altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we play another video? Shall we round it off there, or we're up to about 2 hours, I think. Let's play another video. I've got a mini nuclear video. I don't know what this is. When the Wind Blows. It's 2 minutes.
An extraordinary book is about to come to life as an unforgettable motion picture.
Unforgettable.
It's the story of Jim and Hilda.
Hello, dear.
Hello, love. Did you have a nice morning, dear?
Oh, all right, thanks. Rather uneventful.
Two kind, simple people living on trust and
It'll take
hope.
more than a few bombs to get me down.
The Prime Minister, speaking a few minutes ago in the House of Commons, has warned that the international situation is deteriorating rapidly.
Crumbs.
Could break out.
What's the matter, dear? Have you burned yourself?
This is it, Dux.
Civil defence
This is really it.
But now they're caught up in events which will change our world forever.
Just you be careful, Jane.
An enemy missile attack has been launched.
Oh, dear. I've left the oven on.
Get in, get in, get in!
The cake will be burned.
So long, child. It's all over. I've never felt the time. I dread to think of when the wind blows. When the wind blows.
When the Wind Blows, a film for all time. When the Wind Blows.
Nice. Nice. I mean, what would the point in making that? What would be the point in, unless it was propaganda? There's no point in making that film.
Like,
at all.
fear. Yeah. Like
Total
most of these
fear.
cartoons, like with Animal Farm, I mean, that were bought by the CIA. They're all funded. When you start looking into the background of them, they're all funded by these groups. I don't suppose they were like NGOs are now back in the 80s or what have you, but it's like Boris Johnson's book that he wrote about Churchill was published by a company that was financed by the CIA.
Can I just say what I said in the beginning?
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
It's all of it.
Everything. All of it. Yeah,
Everything.
It's
all done by the same.
Do you know
people.
actually, Dave, when you were talking about Dimension, the Fourth Dimension, I was thinking about that film, and it weirdly preyed on my head for a while. I kept waking up thinking about it. And there's a film that came out a while ago, and it won loads of awards, that Everything Always Always at Once or something. I never actually watched the film, but I knew what it was about. It was about interdimensional travel and etc. But it was the title that got me the most. Everything always always at once.
No, everything, everywhere, all at once.
And I remember waking up with that regurgitating in my head. Even I've never watched the film, and it was just regurgitating in my head.
What was that film about, Chris?
It's like interdimensional travel. I mean, I think the
Time
I think the
travel as well.
interdimensional thing that they sold us through the Marvel films is a bit of like a new space version of space in a way, the multiverse kind of thing. Personally,
Well, funnily enough, the okay. So in my talk, the name and address of the Most High is I am, capital I, capital AM. Yeah, I am everything, everywhere, all at once.
right?
Okay, that's name and address of the Most High. We are I am, small I, small AM. Yeah, I am here and now. Okay, that's our relationship to the Most High. We're a piece of the Most High, small piece of the Most High, experiencing the here and now, whereas the Most High is everything, everywhere, all at once. Yeah, so yeah, it's we can make changes to the timeline because the timeline isn't static. It's like an equation, a maths equation, a massive maths equation being held in a mind. Yeah, so you can tweak some of the variables, and that changes the whole equation. Yeah?
And these Satanists, obviously, they know all this black magic. Well, they call it black magic, but it isn't really. It's only black magic because they haven't taught us about it.
Well, it's black magic in the respect that they can't do it naturally, but they found other ways of doing it. Right? And you know, they call that black magic, where they can actually change reality. You know, by use of I don't know, blood, usually blood and other rituals and stuff.
Yeah. Right, well, great chat, Dave. Thanks for coming on at this late stage. We didn't interrupt you, Dave. You weren't doing no exciting, were you?
Yeah, I was just looking at you guys saying, "Why? Let's see who's better, how they bumped me and why they bumped me."
Having a podcast straight off, yeah.
And now, John Nehmer's going to think you ditched him for Dave. So you lost two friends there, fire.
Yeah,
you can't win, can you?
No. Podcast wars. But yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on that short.
It's all right, mate.
Anyway.
I mean, and to be fair, I mean it any time. Sometimes, if you want a chinwag, which is always good with you, just give me a shove, because generally we go week to week. You know what I mean?
We're already
booked in for a couple of weeks anyway. So yeah, but generally, even if it's an impromptu one, I'll do them. Chris is normally can be busy, but just do a live one like this and just chinwag about a subject. If you've got a subject in your head, just pull it out and we'll have a chinwag about it. No issues. But yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, appreciate it. And we'll see you in a few weeks. You're actually on the podcast. Okay. What are you going to chat about on the podcast when you come on? Your new research, or have we talked about that enough?
Well, I was going to talk about fourth dimension. I think I've spoken a bit about it already, because I strayed into the telepathy tapes and all that.
I'm going to listen to them, Dave. We can talk about that, 'cause I've got them on my list to listen to. Somebody sent me them, and I was going to list them, and then I totally forgot about them. But I'm going to listen to them.
Send me the link, Chris, and I'll cut a few up, and we'll play a few of the excerpts from it as well.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
good idea.
Had a different dimension to it, so to speak. Like we slipped that one in. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. There won't be a show this week. We will put this out as a podcast, unless me and Chris decide to do another hour or so on Thursday.
And sorry to John Nehmer, wherever he went.
Sorry, it'd be deep in a bottle of red now somewhere, probably.
Dom's screwed him over.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you later, Dave.